Alright, in this video, we're going to take a look at S3. What we're really going to try to solve is having a place to store some of our assets. We're going to set up an S3 bucket, and we're going to go through some of the best practices to setting that up. We're going to set up an IAM user group, and then we're going to set up a policy to go along with that. So let's get started here. So you can see that I'm on my policies section. So far we have applications S3 policy. Under user groups, if we go to, so to get to the IAM policies, you're going to have to navigate. Once you're in security credentials, you're going to see the identity and access management, or the IAM system. And this is the menu. So we're going to click on user groups. Now, I've already created an applications user group. The user group is just going to allow you to create users and group them together. So you can see I have one for Laravel management. So a Laravel server such as Forge can access my account and make changes to it if I want to let it do that. And it's the same concept here with the user groups. So we've already created an applications user group. There's no resources inside of it, and there's no users as well. So we would have to create that. We've already created a policy as well. If we go down to policies, we'll see applications S3 policy. So the description I have for it is a policy for external applications to use S3. So let me just drill down into it and get into it, and let's see what it consists of. So nobody's using the policy right now. I just created it. That would be under usage. So let's go ahead and see what it actually consists of. So, whoops, I'm going to hide those. Actually, let's just go to edit policy. Now here we can start to see, when you create a policy, you do have a visual editor that will list out all the different type of actions that can be taken. So in my case, I had a JSON file and I had just pasted the policy into it, and I'll show you exactly what that is. So just by default, it always starts, and this is a JSON file. By default, it just starts off with this version 2012. It seems like it's old, but it's not. It's their current version. And basically what this is doing is this is a statement. So inside the statement section, you have effects and actions as well as resources. So the effect would be I want to allow, and what do I want to allow? I want to allow list all my buckets. So let's say if you had a drop-down list and you need to have all your buckets be able to get queried and fed into that list, that's how you would do that. So the resource that is affecting is all of them. So I'm going to list all my S3 buckets. I'm also going to allow getting the bucket location, listing the bucket, put object, which is writing to the S3 bucket, get object, which would be querying the bucket or the object, delete object. There's get object ACL, so that means get the object's permissions that it has. There's also put object ACL, so if we want to write to those properties, or write to that specific object's properties. And we also added some CloudFront actions as well. So there's list invalidations, get invalidation, create invalidation. And all these are on the buckets resources. So all my buckets I want to get, and all of CloudFront, because I'm going to be using CloudFront to distribute the assets. So in CloudFront, I'm going to be getting the bucket location, and this is on the application level, getting the bucket location and listing the bucket. So we can see here that this is really all we need to have an effective policy for S3. You don't need anything fancy. Now you also want to make sure that you go through the best practices list, and that'll be in the video link. So let's go back and let's go ahead and see what some of the roles are, as well as the users. Let's see the users. So right now I have a few users. Basically Laravel Forge, that's for server management. So I have server management connecting to this and adding servers, doing all that good stuff, right? Making changes to servers. So that's what that is. So let's go ahead and let's add a user. And I'm going to add Craft. I'm going to say Craft Applications. Actually, I'm going to say CraftCMS Applications. So select the credential type. This is going to be access key. Next, we're going to do permissions. So we're going to add them to the applications group. So let's go ahead, let's keep going. I don't really want to create another tag for this. So let's go ahead and create our user. So here we go. So this is very important that we follow this, because if we lose these keys right here, we don't get it back. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to download this file. Now we've just created our policy, our user group, a user. Sometimes you may have to adjust roles as well. I've never really had to adjust them. I've never had to edit. I've never had to create a new role. I've always just used the basic roles that AWS provides. So let's talk about AWS and S3 setup and best practices before we really dig into it. We usually have to set S3 up in a way that offers performance and at the same time security. So we're keeping both in mind, really. So what is S3? It's cloud storage, simply put. It's used with objects, images, videos, documents, anything that is a digital object. Obviously, physical objects can't make it onto the server. And it has very many different use cases. S3 is reliable and scalable, and it's built with performance in mind. Now, some of the best practices when using S3 are disabling ACL, or access control lists. They're usually not needed in modern S3 buckets. Instead, we use policies. So you're going to want to use the correct policies and get those set up. Those offer better protection and security than an ACL. We utilize IAM roles in applications that access your S3 bucket. It's also important to encrypt data when possible. Don't store credentials directly in the application or on EC2 instance. Enforce HTTPS by using HSTS, which is a server header. For more information on these, you can refer to the link that is in the video. Now, so with that done, we can get set up with our bucket. Bucket names must be unique across all of AWS S3, and they must not contain uppercase characters. So let's get started. Now let's go ahead and get started here. So under General Configuration Panel, we can go ahead and type in a bucket name. So we can do AWS Video Sample, or Demo rather, AWS Video Demo. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep this in Ohio, but you can select different areas. So let's go ahead and I'm going to say for object ownership, I'm going to say ACL is disabled and bucket owner enforced. Now, for the most part, we do want to enable public access. However, we're going to take a little bit different approach. We're going to go ahead and uncheck that. we're going to check that. I acknowledge the current settings might result in this bucket. Objects becoming public. That actually is what we want. We're not trying to necessarily make it not public. This is a public-facing site. Or that's what we're making it for. So that's the use case. Now this is where you really have to decide what is your use case. If this was a protected document or something like that, you obviously don't want to have that checked, or you may just go ahead and decide that you want to get fancy and encrypt it. So for bucket versioning, let's go ahead and enable it. The encryption, let's just keep it how it is. And let's go ahead and, so object lock, we can disable that. I'm not going to use it right now. Now let's go ahead and let's hit create bucket. So it actually contains invalid characters, so there's no underscores. So I'm just going to say this. Let's go, let's create the bucket to it. So there's no objects yet. So now what we have to do is we have to make sure that the permissions are set correctly. So let's click on permissions. Now it says block all public access. So that's off. Well, we can edit it. So we can block all, which I already went through that stuff. We're not going to mess with it. Let's just click cancel. So here we're going to be taking a look at the bucket policy. So I've already have a scaffold set up, so it's just a basic template. And what we're going to do is we're going to add in the get object, delete object, and put object. So real quick, let me take them out. And let's add our actions. And you'll be able to see exactly which ones on the sidebar that are going to show up. So I'm going to add in get object. Let's see, where's it at? Get object, there it is. So it puts it under action. And anytime you do this, you have an effect, which is allow or deny. Principal, which usually is always set to whatever you're working with. In this case, it's AWS. So I'm just saying all of AWS. The action is what you want to do. The resource is what resource are you using. And the condition would be some type of delimiter. So here we're in our AWS video demo bucket. And I am just going to keep it just like that with the get object. I'm going to show you what happens. Let's go ahead and save. Now let's go switch over back to our CMS. Now if I go and I view a page or an image, it shows up. Now this is fine. But when I go to upload, watch what happens. We get an error. So what do we have to do? Let's go back to our AWS and let's edit our bucket policy. So click on edit. Let's go and filter out some S3 actions. So now we need to say, if we want to upload something, we need to say put. That is called a put. So here's a put object. And since we're in here, let's go ahead and look for a delete object. That way we can delete it as well. So let's go ahead and make those changes. It's saved. Now let's go try to upload an image again. Here it is. All right, so now what I want to do is show you some of the changes that I made inside the AWS S3 bucket. So let's go to permissions. I actually deleted my bucket policy because I realized that there is an error. This was a bucket policy. However, what I did do is I turned the permissions on to basically say, hey, if objects are public, then they're public. So let's just expose those. Now, it's not you'll see in a second where I'm going with this. It's not public to everybody and everything because the objects are actually still their bucket owner preferred, which basically means that the owner of the bucket owns the object. So you can see that right here, bucket owner, then it has the AWS account. I can list and I can write, and I can also read ACLs and write ACLs on the bucket. So everyone, or public access, is missing. So what I did is I just deleted the policy and I changed it to, let's see, under, well, you would see it under here. Actually, hold on, let me back up here. So permissions, object ownership, and then it was ACLs disabled, was clicked off right there. However, I just changed it to ACLs enabled, and then I have the object ownership as bucket owner preferred. Basically, if new objects are written to the bucket, specify the bucket owner, full control, canned ACL, they are owned by the bucket owner. Otherwise, they are owned by the object writer. All right, so what does that do with our application and trying to upload images, trying to display images, things like that? You'll see here that I can display images, and let's see if we can finally upload images. So let me just pick this image, just a random, I don't know what this is, like a Pikachu looking thing. Yeah, that's what it is. So you can see now that it's working, and it's working correctly. It's working how it's designed. So yeah, that's in a nutshell. That's AWS S3, how to set up your IAM policies, your groups, your users, your bucket, and how to make it all work inside of an application. Now, this may require some more education around specifics, so feel free to reach out. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. If you want to stay up to date on various web development topics, please hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell. See you on the next one.